This is the story of how the Oregon caves were found. While on a hunting trip in 1874, Elijah Davidson found a cave and is credited with the discovery of the Oregon Caves National Monument. Elijah had just taken down a deer on his hunting trip. Just after that, his faithful hunting dog Bruno had ran off after the scent of another animal. Elijah could faintly hear Bruno barking and worried he would lose him. He followed Bruno's barking up a hill now known as Mount Elijah, where the Oregon Caves were discovered. First, Elijah spotted the stream that seemed to come out of the rocks and brush. From another direction, he heard a deep growl and a series of barks. He then found the source of the stream coming out of a dark hole behind some shrubs. Listening carefully, Elijah found the growling and barking to be coming from the mountain itself. He debated whether or not to enter the dark cave. Bruno was a faithful hunting companion that he did not want to lose. Entering a dark cave with the possibility of a bear inside could be a deadly decision for Elijah. As Elijah was trying to decide, he heard a high-pitched yelp from the cavern in front of him. He set down his heavier hunting gear and entered with a knife and some Chinese sulfur matches. Striking the matches against rocks to light them, he lit the path as he entered the cave. After entering, he paused for a moment to let his eyes adjust to the dark. Once adjusted, he noticed signs that a bear had been sleeping inside the cave at some point. He followed the sound of the stream, stepping on rocks to avoid his feet getting soaked. Knife and matches in hand, he passed by walls of strange shapes and textures. The matches burned down to his fingertips, and he pulled a couple more out to light the way. He pushed onward, listening for animals, but his concentration was broken at times by the strange and glistening rock formations. Elijah was determined to follow his dog deeper into the cave. Throughout the cave, Elijah could hear growling and barking, which kept him going deeper. After some time had passed, he realized that he was down to the last of his sulfur matches. Elijah decided it was time to retrace his steps, but everything looked different from the other direction. He wasn't certain of which passageway he had come through originally. Just as he found some of his footsteps, the last match had died, and with that he was in complete darkness. He stopped moving as he had lost sense of direction without any light. Elijah worried about himself and his dog Bruno. He also thought of his hunting party and family back home waiting for him. He sat and wondered if anyone would be able to find him before it was too late. Suddenly, the sound of the stream came to his attention. He knew that if he could get back to the stream, he could follow it to the beginning of the cave. While carefully listening to the water, he crawled along the rocks of the cave. Traveling in complete darkness and in a closed space was very difficult for Elijah. While crawling, Elijah's knees were getting scraped by rocks, and he had one hand in front of him to feel the passageway as he went. As he slowly made his way through the cave, the sound of the stream became more clear. Elijah kept moving, sometimes calling out to Bruno and his hunting party. The sound of the bear had been absent for a while, which was comforting but also worrisome, as that meant that he was nowhere near the cave's exit. As the sound of the stream grew louder, Elijah felt running water on his fingertips. He was excited to make progress, but also had to slow down to avoid hitting his head on the uneven rocks. In some parts of the cave, he had to leave the stream bed due to the narrowness of the openings. Some paths would be dead ends, flooded, or too small to navigate through. After painful and tough crawling, he saw the faint glow of light in the distance. Carefully moving through the cave, he had reached the opening and could see the sun setting. Elijah was relieved that he had made it out alive, but Bruno was still missing. He grabbed his gear and headed down the hill where the dead deer was lying. After waiting, Elijah hoisted the deer over his shoulder and began to head back to camp. Just as he was leaving, he heard a familiar bark coming from up the hill. Injured and running towards Elijah was his faithful companion Bruno. Both very beat up were happy to be reunited and headed back to camp together. Elijah told his hunting party of the cave experience and went back later to show them. This was the story of how Elijah Davidson found the Oregon Caves, which is now a national monument and preserve. I hope you enjoyed this story and the views of the cave.